right, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, whatever time it is, wherever it is that you are. Welcome once more to another video podcast of Political News Time, coming at you live from the PNTLive.net network. And remember, if you're interested in checking out the archives of this podcast or many of the other podcasts that I host, just visit PNTLive.net or subscribe to the YouTube channel that's associated with Political News Time. And you can find the link to that over on politicalnewstime.com. I'm Alex Mayers. So I hope all of you are having a good week. I'm sorry that I'm a little bit late this evening. Tonight's discussion is going to diverge a little bit away from politics, but this particular podcast, I'm certain, would be of tremendous interest to politicians, or at least individuals with political aspirations. On my Twitter, I said that this podcast is geared toward men, but that was a little closed-minded because it could apply to women also in certain positions in life. But tonight's podcast is going to revolve around a few things that I feel politicians, public figures, and just anyone who's prominent in the business world should think about prior to getting involved with a sex worker. And remember, a sex worker, the term sex worker can mean many things nowadays. It can mean someone who is a high-end escort. It can mean someone who is a online webcam model. It could mean someone who's a professional porn star. It could be someone who works legally in a Nevada legal brothel. It could be so many things. But as much as I've taken up for many sex workers over the years, especially over the past year, maybe past 2 years, quite a few women within the world of sex work, men too, but quite a few people in general have tremendously disappointed me when it's come to my learning about their involvement in organized crime, extortion rackets, just engaging in incredibly unethical activity. And I feel like the mainstream media oftentimes coddles sex workers, and I think it has to do with the mainstream media being predominantly controlled by Democrats who tend to utilize sex workers as weapons against their enemies. We all saw it happen with Donald Trump, all right? But the reality is that though there are some decent individuals who are sex workers who face a tremendous amount of unwarranted stigma, the reality is that I would say over 90% of sex workers work double time as criminals. They are bad people. They are hustlers. They are manipulators. They are connivers, liars, oftentimes mentally ill, oftentimes sociopaths, oftentimes psychopaths. And I feel like the mainstream media highlights like that tiny 1% so often that are decent people, that mainstream society thinks that that tiny 1% represents the whole, whereas in actuality it does not. So like I said, today I'm going to go over some safety tips for men and women who may find themselves interacting with a sex worker for whatever reason in the future in a personal capacity. Being that we are living in tough times economically, you have to keep in mind that a lot of sex workers are con artists also. They use the sex to lure you in, to gain your trust, and then they gather your personal information, which they will utilize later to try to extort you or blackmail you. They will try to learn about your friends, your family, your business dealings. If possible, they will record using their phone or some other kind of video camera their interactions with you to use as leverage against you possibly later. Not just sexual interactions, but maybe illegal drug use, which you shouldn't be doing anyway, but some of anything and everything. You get involved with someone who is a professional sex worker, the first thing that you need to do is ask them for a recent STD test, please, especially if you are married, because your spouse does not deserve to contract something that they can't get rid of from you because you're a selfish son of a bitch or bitch. Seriously, okay? You should get one to present to the sex worker, and the sex worker should get one to present to you. Really, you shouldn't be getting involved with one anyway, but if you have any children, don't disclose your children's information to these people. Just don't. It's very rare that someone leaves that world and continues with their life in a healthy, professional, ethical sort of way. One of the reasons that the adult entertainment industry does not like to mention my name is because I'm one of the very few who did. I know how to leave properly. And they don't want many women that they have in there, men too, who are of healthy mind and heart and spirit to be able to leave. But if you are one and you want some tips as to how to get away, feel free to contact me. Don't tell anyone else that you're contacting me if you do, or they might kill you. I suppose the last thing that I want people to keep in mind before getting involved with a sex worker is that the majority are either abuse survivors who need some sort of therapy or psychological help, or they are mentally ill beyond help. Okay? Many who are abuse survivors have become predators. Survival, that's why they do. It's very hard for a predator to ever stop. Someone who's an abuse survivor, who's still being abused, who hasn't become a predator, 50-50 chance they can be helped. Someone who's simply mentally ill, you just don't want to get into a relationship with them. If a sex worker has a YouTube channel that you can look at to get to know them before you get involved with them or as you're getting involved with them, take a look at it. Use your best judgment as to whether or not you should move forward with them. Okay? I know all of these things that I'm mentioning seem very negative and very pessimistic when it comes to a sex worker being capable of having a healthy relationship, but the reality is that most are not capable. I hate saying that. I know for a fact that I have trouble dating to this day because people assume things about me that are not true. They assume that I am not psychologically healthy because I have a past in that world, and because they've heard many of the things that I've outlined to many of you today. But that's okay. Those people are not for me. I know that whoever is for me, powers that be, God, elements beyond what my five senses can perceive, they will bring that person into my life, okay? Whatever's meant to be, I believe will be. Be careful, everyone out there, and especially if you have aspirations to be a politician or a public figure, think very long and hard before getting involved with a sex worker, current or someone who was a sex worker in the past, because you will be judged harshly. Who's an example of that? Our current president, ironically, Donald Trump. I would like very much to interview Melania one day. I don't see how that ever could happen, but for some reason, I think it will happen. So I'm going to end today's podcast with that. Thank you everyone for tuning in and watching. I'll be back here tomorrow, same time, same place.